reality podcast editing software. Aren't we good to you? Now we're going to be talking about building a tribe with live and love. I want you to give a very big, gorgeous Pods Up North welcome to James Barr and Dan Hudson from the award-winning podcast A Gay and a Non-Gay, and also Alex from Spotify as well. Come on down. Oh.
Give it up for Alex. Hey, girl.
Thank you. That was nice. I'm back again. Sorry, everyone. But James and Dan are going to do most of the talking. So, yeah, this is James and Dan.
Hi.
James Barr and Dan Hudson, who present A Gay and a Non-Gay.
He's the gay one.
Which is a podcast that I very much enjoy, and I'm sure there must be some fans in here as well. I think we've got a video to play. Should we do that first and then get
so if you've never heard of A Gay and a Non-Gay before, this is how we came about and what we are.
They have the right cable?
It's the right cable, just this blank screen. This is us.
So maybe we should explain that with a question. How did you guys come up with a podcast? How did you meet? Where did it all come from? How long have you been going for?
So he's gay and I'm not. And that's basically the premise of it.
Thanks very much, everyone. See you later. Goodbye.
Where?
Do we have any gays here? Any gays? Woo! Any LGBT people? Woo! Any non-gays? Woo! All right, guys, calm down. This is not a sport event. We met through Dan's girlfriend, Talia. She moved abroad and left him for dead. And I was asked to look after him. And basically, I think Talia thought it'd be quite funny for us to do a podcast together because we had nothing in common, let alone our sexual preferences. We literally have nothing else in common either.
Yeah. Well, we still don't really, to be honest.
No. And
apart from the podcast.
And we recorded it, Alex, and that's sort of how we ended up being here today. The screen looks like it's working.
Do we have the video to play, or is it just the holding?
There we go.
Ooh.
That's it. So this is sort of our first ever episode, basically. Or will be. Oh, here we go.
Hi, welcome along, listeners. What's funny?
I just think that's a really weird thing to say. It's kind of creepy.
What's creepy about it?
Welcome, listeners. Like, there's more.
Well, that's
than,
what they
like,
are.
There's more than one.
well, we will see.
Should we kind of explain what this is, Dan? Dan's girlfriend is one of my best friends, but it's also Dan's girlfriend. So it's kind of awkward because we're forced to be friends with each other, and we're not really friends, are we?
Are we not?
No, we're not. What do you mean?
Really? Why not?
Well, we're not besties, do we? We know each other through Talia, so...
I mean, this is news to me.
Anyway, we don't know what to call this podcast, but we're thinking a gay and a non-gay because that's kind of what we are. I'm a gay and you're non-gay. Dad's offended by the title because he doesn't want to be called a non-gay. Why is that offensive?
It's not offensive, but I'm not gay. But equally...
Well, that's fine.
Equally, I don't wear hats anymore, right? And I don't want to be defined as... I don't want this show to be called a gay and a non-hat wearer. Because it's like, you know,
the same thing.
I don't want to wander around saying, like, I'm not gay. In the grand scheme of things that, like, define me, that's not really one of them.
No.
Amazing. How long have you two been making the podcast for now?
So that was about 3 years ago now, wasn't it? So we're like 160 episodes in, something like that. Yeah. It's been a ride.
Can you tell us a bit more about the format of the podcast? For those that haven't listened, what can we expect from an episode of the pod?
It's a bit of a roller coaster, really. We go from having nonsense conversations like that and talking about, some quite sexual things, to talking about, quite deep, dark issues. But we still try and bring light to it. I think we lighten up a lot of dark issues with the way we have a sort of conversational podcast chat. We've talked about HIV, homophobia rising in the UK, 51% of LGBT people saying they felt depressed in the last year, stuff like that. But then as well as that, rimming and the use of douching, how to correctly clean your bum before bum sex.
A book called Natural Harvest, which is a cookbook. This guy's got a copy of it. Do you want to tell everyone what Natural Harvest is? Okay.
Oh well, it's
We've gone there, and it's a book where it's a cookery book where semen is the main ingredient.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
comes up a
I
lot.
didn't listen to that episode.
Well,
Well,
my God.
it's a treat. Dan thinks it's brilliant because in our current climate emergency, we should all be doing our bit to use less of the world's natural resources.
cuts down on global milk production.
So going back to the more serious stuff, I thought this was going to segue really nicely into some episodes that you did quite recently, but it's not going to. So I wanted to talk about the episode that you released last week, which was an interview with Megan Phelps from the Westboro Baptist Church. So obviously, this has followed on quite naturally. But you haven't shied away from talking about quite difficult topics, as you said, and you did a series for BBC, was it BBC Radio 1 earlier this year, about gay conversion therapy in Northern Ireland. So it'd be really good to get a bit more about how you approach those topics and the importance of those, about exploring those on the podcast. Why do you want to feature that kind of content on your pod?
Well, I think, and this session is about sort of building a tribe. I think we think of it as like a bit of a family, really, like our listener base. And we started to notice quite soon after we'd been doing our podcast, talking about some of the more silly stuff, we were getting quite a lot of messages from listeners saying how much we'd changed their lives. And that took us by surprise quite a bit, didn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, well, we were and are continue to be sort of amazed by the messages that we get from people all around the world, especially in places where it's especially difficult to be LGBT.
Yeah, and from seeing a lot of those messages and being so touched by them, we realized we were actually doing something quite important, and we were directly talking to people that needed what we were doing. And living in London, it didn't really seem that crazy to be a gay and a non-gay. But then I started getting messages from people saying, I can't be friends with my best mate anymore because I've come out and all his friends are picking on him because he's best friends with a gay person. And outside of London and Manchester and other big, liberal cities, it is more difficult to bridge those divides, and we were kind of doing that. And so we were getting a lot of emails from people telling us about darker stuff going on, so we realized it was important to get into that. Plus, I'd had some really difficult times with mental health, so I was really open about that. The BBC Sounds doc came about due to some emails we got after talking about gay marriage.
Yeah, so we were quite naively going around going, oh my God, we live in the UK, it's amazing, we've got gay marriage. And then our listeners in Northern Ireland were quick to tell us to shut up. Because up until last week, or 2 weeks ago, they didn't have equal marriage in Northern Ireland. We didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
Which we're quite embarrassed about, even now. So we started getting a lot of listeners from our listeners in Northern Ireland, and we ended up going over there to make a documentary for Radio 1. A, because of that, and B, because we'd been talking about gay conversion therapy, which, if you don't know, it's this practice where you attempt to convert someone who is gay to be non-gay.
You may know it as gay conversion bullshit.
Yeah. It doesn't work, but it's completely legal in the UK, so we wanted to sort of shine a light on that, and it's particularly prevalent in somewhere like Northern Ireland, where religion is much more prominent than it is over here, should we say.
Yeah, and we went and met this man who converts people. Dan tried to be...
So I'm the success story from that.
Yeah. Big up,
James
Dan.
is still in the academy.
I'm trying really hard. Anyway, obviously it's nonsense. And throughout that documentary, although it is very hard to listen to, we do still sort of try and have fun with it, if you can do that. So we did that, and we then recently it's like we're attacking religion a lot lately. I don't know why. We did an interview with Megan Phelps Roper from the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah. So does everyone know who the Westboro Baptist Church is? Okay.
Dan's a big fan.
Yeah, if you don't know, they're on this Louis Theroux documentary, The Most Hated Family in America. and they are these extremist Christians who like picket soldiers' funerals with signs saying God
hates fags. You can't say it.
In this context, I can say it. It's fine. Can I? Well, I've said it.
It's not fine. Only I can say it.
Okay. Well, they have signs saying
God hates fags.
Yeah. And they're awful, obviously, but one of their members left, and she's now, she's written an amazing book about why she left and how she was brainwashed and grown up in this almost cult-like atmosphere. And yeah, we had her on the podcast last week to chat to her, basically, and it was one of the best things I think both of us have ever done, really.
Yeah, if anyone's not listened to that episode yet, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to it. Didn't she apologise for like her behaviour? Have we got a clip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of made her apologise.
You did, to be fair. You forced her, and rightly so.
No.
Big up Emma, though.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of gay people listening, so what's your, what do you want to say? If you have anything you want.
First, I'm so sorry for all of the years that I spent spreading a message that was so incredibly hurtful to so many people, to so many of you, I should say. I did it because I thought it was the right thing, and I stopped doing it when I believed that it was wrong. But I know that can't undo any of the damage. It can't bring back any of the people who hurt themselves and who felt like they had no place to go because of groups like Westview. And that is, a devastating thing for me to consider now. And all I can do is be better and try to do what I can to make sure that doesn't happen anymore.
Ugh, I feel so uncomfortable.
I was going to ask you, how did you feel when you were talking?
I think I literally said after that, please don't look at me when you're saying that.
Oh, really?
Because it felt like a lot of pressure. Because I'm not the only LGBT person she's talking to, but she's literally talking to me. So it felt like my responsibility to say, cool, thanks, we forgive you. Whereas obviously I'm not going to say that. So I kind of just, I don't know, we just sort of moved on into the next question. I mean, I said all of that to her, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing hearing someone that's done that talk about that. And the response from our listeners has been amazing. We had messages from people saying they used to use the Westboro Baptist Church's messages and hate as a way of kind of feeling their own shame. A bit like when you Google Donald Trump and you just keep looking at it and it just makes you hate yourself more and more and more. It's a bit like that, I guess. And so, yeah, I think it was quite cathartic for our listeners to have her sort of come out and speak against it.
And talking about your listeners, you've built quite a community around the podcast. What are the ways in which you sort of leverage that community, and how do you make people feel a part of that community for your podcast?
That's a good question. One of the things that we like to do is, because we were getting messages from people saying, we want to come to your show, but we don't have any friends, or we'd have to go by ourselves. So we don't like the idea of that. So we always come out before our shows and meet everyone and introduce people who are on their own to other people. Because I just hate the idea of someone wanting to come, especially if they're LGBT and they're suffering from any number of problems and they feel that they can't come to our show because they'll be by themselves. So we always make a point of introducing our fans to each other and coming and saying hi, and then before and after the show. What else do we do?
I don't know. I suppose we just have we reply to every single message we receive. It might take us a while, especially if it's like a harder message, but I make sure we reply to everything we get. I think that's really important. At our show in Edinburgh, we had a message from a girl called Ellie, and she said, I work at the Fringe, I came last night, and after watching the show, I've decided to be myself, and I've come out as trans to my family. And then she came back the next night, and we got her on stage very briefly, just to give her a big cheer. And yeah, I guess it's moments like that. We try and have a closer relationship with our listeners as possible. We did a show in Dublin a couple of weeks ago, and this guy, after our show had finished, said to us, why did you postpone your show until now? Because we were meant to do a show earlier in the year, but we moved it. We moved it because there was a podcast festival later in the year, and it made more sense. And he was like, don't do that again. We're like, okay. It was like he was our mum or something. So we just try and be as close as possible to our listeners and connect them with each other.
And I suppose the live shows are a really good way of doing that. So when did you start doing live shows? Because they're kind of quite a big part of what you do now, I suppose, alongside the podcast. How long has that been part of the proposition?
I think maybe 2 years ago we booked a room in a pub and just sat in it.
Yeah.
and just answer questions that people had written out of a box.
Yeah.
And people seemed to find that hysterically funny, so we thought, oh, maybe there is something in doing this.
Well, I think we first did it because I wanted to find a boyfriend. So I was like, let's do a live show. But that didn't quite work. And then, after that show, we did
the London Podcast Festival as a first one.
God, yeah, we did. And that was really punching above our weight, I felt, at the time.
Yeah.
We had to really convince them to have us because we really wanted to do it. But, yeah, it went really well. I think we filled that room crazily. That was really early on. And
I was there.
You were.
Thanks
for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
And, yeah.
And then after that, we did a couple of Edinburgh dates just to kind of test the water. And they both, didn't know how big the room was, but it sold out.
And you did a run at Edinburgh this summer as well, didn't you?
And then, so this year we did 9 dates in Edinburgh, 9 different shows, 18 different guests. They're all like completely different, so it's basically a brand new show every night it's basically like a radio show.
It was a lot of work. Well, it was like a podcast, but done every single day with stuff that was going on in the news, and so you could come every single night and it would be different. And we always start our show with an animation like the one you saw, and every single one of those was different as well. So it was a lot of work, but it was really worth it. And we found through that it's kind of also like marketing. So we had our own listeners coming, but we also had other people that were at the Fringe coming too, which is a really good way of like building more of an audience.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that was like a radio show, like the compiling that. I know, Dan, you're a radio producer by trade, and James, you do a show on Hits Radio. What would you say the main differences between your radio projects and the podcast are? Like, what? Yeah.
I think it's really the connection, and I answer this question differently depending on who I'm speaking to, because if I'm with a bunch of radio people, I'll be like, oh my God, radio's amazing. But then with a bunch of podcast people, I'm obviously going to be more honest. I think... radio is great. It's instant. It's happening right now, and people can hear it right now. And podcasts are obviously more delayed because people can listen back to them. But with a podcast, they are coming to you and they are investing in you directly. So you're not you're talking directly to a couple of people. And it's much more niche. You're connecting with them way more intensely than you would be on the radio. Radio is a lot more sort of catch-all, where you're just broadcasting it to everyone, so you have to kind of be a bit everyone about it, and you have to play the music that everyone will like. Whereas, a podcast is way more intimate, and I've seen that from the messages we've received and stuff, and you can be more honest, and there isn't necessarily a advertiser that you might upset. I mean, there could be, but you'd just be like, well, fuck off then. Yeah. So I think that answers the question. Does it? Yeah. Do you feel the same?
It's we own it. We are, again and again, we own that idea. So if somebody doesn't like it, that's not our problem. Whereas we don't own a radio station. We're not a radio station. So you're restricted by all sorts of legal and business reasons why you can't do stuff. So for example, with a gay and non-gay, if we went to the BBC or anyone and said, we've got this really great idea, he's gay and I'm not, can we have a show? They'd be like, no.
Now they wouldn't be like,
no.
No,
they wouldn't be, no.
But at the time, I think they would.
I mean, I don't blame them for saying that, but we've just done it, and that's the beauty of the podcast is you just go and do it, and if it doesn't work, we haven't really lost anything, but occasionally it works really well, and mad things happen, like you get the Westboro Baptist Church on. And
yeah, I mean, there are moments, of course, on the radio and television and all sorts of media where you will it will change people's lives in all sorts of different storytelling. But I think I've noticed from the difference in radio and podcasting is that we are literally changing people's lives from what I hear. And when I'm introducing Ariana Grande, I'm not sure I'm changing people's lives as much.
It's a fair point.
Although Ariana Grande is life-changing.
Yeah, I do.
Also, like anecdotally, people really listen to podcasts. So if we were on the radio and we said something, if we slag someone off, we'd probably get away with it. If we slag someone off on the podcast, that person will hear it, like either because they listen or someone there. I'm talking like friends or people that we know, rather than celebrities. But if I say, "Oh, my mate Vanessa or my mate Dave is doing my head in," on the radio, they might not catch that. But on the podcast, they'll 100% get to that, and that is interesting.
You know that radio stations have listen again now. Did you know that?
Yeah, but it's not like. Do you not agree?
I kind of do, yeah, I know what you're saying. Radio is much more like instant and then it's gone. And although you can listen again, yeah, it's like out there and then it's gone. Whereas a podcast, it does stay there forever. So my entire sexual history is documented in our podcast. So any new boyfriend that comes along will know he can access, everything. And and then when he tells his parents, like, oh, I'm going out with James, he's really cool, he has this podcast called A Gay and a Non-Gay, they could ring him up the next day and say, he slept with 8 guys in New York in one night. Is that cool? It was. But are they okay with that? So that's all documented. Everything is there forever.
It was cool until he got the STD.
When you asked this question, you had no idea that we were going to get here.
I had no idea about that. What I was going to ask you off the back of that is, how do you feel about being so personal and open on your podcast? Like, is there anything that is like completely off topic, or are you completely prepared to say? Well, it sounds like you're completely prepared to share everything, to be honest. But like, would there be anything that you wouldn't talk about? And how do you feel about people hearing it?
Well, we don't want to say personal things about people. I think that's fair to say, unless it's
About other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ended badly in the past.
And I mean, we have done that.
We've had to edit it and re-upload it. It's changed my life just doing it. And at first I really struggled to even just identify as being gay, so publicly. And so it's been a bit of a journey, but yeah, now I think it's really important to just share everything because people don't, and they absolutely should share everything because the more we talk about everything, the less of a taboo it is, and then we're all way more comfortable with each other. And you should fire that question at Dan, because I think he's still more uncomfortable being open than I am.
Well, I don't have anything to be open about, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, my life isn't really as interesting as yours. I haven't slept with any guys in New York.
If you want to, I'll give you the address.
What, 8 addresses or?
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. That is, and I'm not coming for you at all there, but I definitely think that there have been questions like, how is it that your girlfriend lives abroad? What's your sex life like? That you wouldn't want to answer directly.
Well, it's non-existent, isn't it? Clearly. So there you go.
That's true, yeah. But we've both changed a lot from doing it, and I think being open and honest is something that we've both learned how to do way more than we were at the start of it.
Cool. And just to round off, I know there's some really exciting news that loads of exciting stuff's happened for you guys recently. Do you want to share the exciting news with everyone?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, it is exciting depending on whether you want to come or not. And please don't put this on social media, Pods Up North people. But yeah, we're going to do a tour next year, and we're really excited. It'll be our first proper tour of the UK.
Yes, including Manchester. Where are we playing here?
Brighton. Oh, in Manchester?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Can't remember.
But we're coming.
So somewhere.
Somewhere. So we're doing Brighton, London, Birmingham, Manchester, and Glasgow, which is so cool. It's like a full sweep, apart from Northern Ireland. Thanks.
Yeah.
Here comes our live read, Matt Deegan. Go to gaynongay.com/live to get tickets from Wednesday when we announce. And what's the tour called? Dan named it, by the way. Dan decided on the name of the tour.
So we talk a lot about bumming on the podcast. So we talk about how our listeners bum us. So this is the bumming tour where we're going to go out and bum our listeners back.
So if you want a good hard bumming, go to gaynongay.com/live/bumming. We should set that up. Yeah.
Let's do that.
I think that's probably quite a good point to leave it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
We bum Spotify, so give it up for Alex.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I think we've got a couple of minutes of questions, so I'm happy to. I don't know if there's a mic. I don't know if you want to borrow a mic. Hello. this lady in front of me.
Loved the things that you did at the start where you're walking along and talking. How is that relevant with your podcast?
What do you mean relevant? Sorry.
Well, because people can't see you.
Oh, well, we use that to explain who we are. So when we're doing a conference like this, we've just made that. So it's like a quick, here's who we are. And also our artwork, we have that in our artwork. So it's fun when we do live shows to just bring them into the audience, because I feel like that's what they know us for more so than our faces. So when we do a live show, we use those at the start to be like, look, it's our artwork, and now it's coming to life. Do you know what I mean?
I love it. It's really great.
Oh, thank you. And we use it on social media, of course, as well. Hello. Really interesting you should ask that. So I'll find you later. I don't want to freak anyone out. Hi, in the orange. He's one of them.
What kind, like a mistake like sleeping with 8 guys, or a mistake like an editing?
Yeah. I called all of Newcastle racist by mistake. So that was pretty awkward. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind admitting that I did that. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and I think we went in and edited that.
It was a mistake. It was genuinely a mistake. I'd lived there, and I felt like people were more openly racist than anywhere else I'd been. But that's how I should have worded it. Not by saying all of them were racist, because of course they're not. That is exactly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're going to see all the Geordies in Glasgow.
The banter level in this room is so much fun. Are there any more questions? We have one more at the back over here. Hello. I wanted to do it, and Dan didn't, I think. And I sort of dragged him. I mean, this whole thing has been me dragging him along with me.
I'm not sure that's entirely true. But we did a really small room in like my area with loads of our friends as just to test the water, and because that went really well, that pretty much made us go, okay, well, let's just try this.
I don't know why we did it at that point. I think we just thought it would be fun. I think we did it because it would be fun, and we had a lot of friends listening, and they'd said it would be fun. So it was very much a grassroots, like small little thing that we did just for ourselves. And then we decided to keep doing it and grow it a bit more.
Fab. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the
again,
questions.
everyone. Have a good day.